very nice. I feel the exact same way about Gertrude as she does about me. We have that connection. I'm grateful to get to speak again today. I have a story to tell. It's not the normal story that I tell, and even though this is a very open forum, it's kind of a private story. It's not my story, but it is my story. I am a sign language interpreter, and I've been a sign language interpreter for about 25 years. It's one of the skills that I picked up in my 40s and made a career of it. I worked at a high school, and there was a young girl at the school that I worked at that was very bright. She was deaf enough that she didn't have speech, but she was very, very smart, a straight A student. One day she came to school and she told us that she had been raped by her uncle, and that she called the police, and her uncle got arrested. And her mother was very angry at her for turning in the uncle. Of course, the aunt was too. Well, when she came to school the next day and she told us this story, she told us also that he had been raping her for 8 years. And the previous Thanksgiving, she was very excited because her family was going to Las Vegas for the weekend of Thanksgiving. And her uncle took her to this place and 8 men raped her. And that day she made a decision that she was not going to let him rape her again without calling the police. And the next time he raped her or attempted to rape her, she called the police. A couple days later, she came to school and she had bruises on her, and her mother had hit her with a shoe. And I don't know how much she hit her, but enough to bruise her. We were concerned, so I called, myself and the other interpreters, and the teacher for that group of kids was a deaf teacher. We mainstreamed the kids out into classes. And so we called Child Protective Services. I don't remember which one of us actually made the call, but I knew that they needed to be called. I was asked to go to the home and interpret for Brenda. Her mother didn't speak English, and she also did not sign. So she had no way to communicate with her child. Something I couldn't even imagine, not being able to communicate with my child. I didn't even have a deaf child, and I knew how to sign. I got there was a Spanish interpreter for mom, and there was myself for her, and the CPS lady, and her sister was there. The only communication she ever had with her mom was through her sister, whose sign language was not proficient enough to really tell the story. I think the sister interjected quite a bit of the stuff. I couldn't understand what the interpreter was saying from the mom, but Brenda, I wasn't going to use her name. This young student stood next to a window, crouched at the window, like someone was going to hit her. I, as an interpreter, am a facilitator. I'm not allowed to have emotions. I'm not allowed to interject any information. I'm only allowed to bring information from Brenda to the CPS worker and back to Brenda, or to the mom and back to Brenda. I have no right to have an opinion. It was difficult because I really loved this child. She was 16 and she was amazing. I then interpreted the meeting, and because this is not a 15-minute story, I will let you know that the outcome was not good. And CPS decided that mom had every right to discipline her daughter because mom said she was a bad kid. I left that day feeling very despondent. The next 2 days later, Brenda came to school, and I was called into the office and into the police officer at the high school's office. He had Brenda in there, and the deaf teacher and I went in. We got there, and he asked Brenda, again, we're going to take her name out, please, when we edit this, to the student to show him what she had done that morning. She started crying and she pulled up her sleeve and she had cut her wrist. Something in my brain said, this can't happen. What are we going to do? Wait till this child commits suicide? I said, that's it. I'm helping her run away from home. The police officer said, I didn't hear that. The deaf teacher said, I didn't hear that. So I took her to her house. We got some clothes for her and she came to my home to stay. The next 2 days, this was a Friday, I was told by the police officer that I had to have her on campus on Monday morning. The next 2 days, we heard rumors about what was going on. The family was searching for her. There was a lot of, so I was told there was a gun, that someone was going to come after whoever had her. I didn't care. The following Monday morning, I took her to school, but I knew that we couldn't just take her to school. So I walked into the teacher of the year's classroom. His name was Dave. And I said, Dave, do you think I'm somewhat of a sane person? He goes, of course, Geri. I said, I need to hide a student in your classroom today. He had all these rooms in the back. It was a wood shop and he had all these rooms in the back of the classroom. I said, I can't tell you why, and I can't tell you who, I just need to hide a student. He said, okay. So I hid her there. I went to all her classes and got her work. She did all her work that day. I could see the proctors run around campus trying to find out where she was. And no one that day asked me where she was. I never had to lie about where Brenda was. Later on, the end of the day came. I snuck her back to my car and I drove her home. We did realize that it was a little too hot at the school to bring her the next day. But part of the reason she cut her wrist is her mom had refused to allow her to go to court. So she was so despondent that she wouldn't be able to testify against her uncle. So on Tuesday of that week, I took her back to the high school. I put her in the police officer's car. He drove her to the next city over. She testified to the DA as to what had happened. They had canceled court because they were told that she was missing. They put her back in the car, brought her back and gave her back to me, and I took her and hid her again. So now I had the teacher of the year, the police officer, the teacher of the deaf students, and all the other interpreters knew I had her. On Tuesday, while they were at court, the principal it was a county program, came, and I thought, okay, I need to let her know that I know where this child is and that she's safe. So I did. I told her that. And she said, Geri, you have put me in such a bad position. I don't know if I can save your job. I don't care. She says, where is she? I said, I can't tell you that. All I can tell you is that she's safe. So the week went on and I found different people that let her stay with them during the day while I worked the whole week. Friday came. It's time. The police department had found out that the police officer at the high school knew who had this student. So he told me if I didn't produce her at the police station by 3 o'clock that day, that he would lose his position at the high school. We couldn't afford that. He was so good to the students there. So I called her and I went over and picked her up and took her to the police station. We took her down and we 5150'd her. And 5150 means that you put them in a hospital for attempted suicide. She was there for 8 days. In those 8 days, she refused to tell who had her. On the 8th day, they said, if you don't tell us who had you, then we will make you stay in this hospital. So she relented and she gave my name. Next thing I knew, I had a phone call from the police officer saying, do you have a lawyer, Geri? There's a warrant out for your arrest. He said, but I have something up my sleeve, so don't worry too much. And I said, okay. My husband had already told me that if I got arrested, he wouldn't bail me out, but he also grew to love this young woman when she stayed at our home. So I knew that he would. So he went to the DA's office and asked the DA to go with him to visit the DA in the next city over. And the two DAs were both women. And they both understood that possibly I shouldn't be arrested. The arrest warrant came from the superintendent of schools. He had requested it. So I didn't get arrested that day, but I did worry about being confronted by that superintendent for a while. She went on to, her mom lost custody, was ordered by the court to learn sign language. The young girl stayed with the family until her mother completed her program and learned to speak to her and got counseling on raising a deaf child. She went on to get a full ride at college and became a very successful woman. And to this day, I'm so proud of her for saying, "He will not do that to me again. I will call the police." There are so many women that face tragedy and they can be successful. I'm grateful I was a little part of that young girl's life. She now works for the FBI as a fingerprint expert. Very successful. My message to you today is that we as women can make a difference in this world. We have the heart for it. We have the strength, and we need to do that. And this is my message today. Thank you.